Another journalist is feared missing in Mozambique's embattled northern province of Cabo Delgado after police took him into custody on October the 29th while he was working in the mining town of Blama. Arlindo Chisale is a freelancer and editor of Pinnacle News, an online publication that has covered the ongoing violence in northern Mozambique. Chisale has been held in Comunicado and without access to lawyers since being detained on Saturday. A family member and friends told Human Rights Watch. According to the Mozambican media rights group MISA, a local official confirmed that police took Chisale to the police station but provided no further detail. Now, to speak more on the threats and human rights abuse on journalists, we're being joined by Lloyd Kuveya, Assistant Director, Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria. Thank you very much for joining us, Lloyd.
Very good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me to talk about this very sad story.
Now, Lloyd, threats, freedom of expression and safety has become a big concern around the world for journalists. What do human rights laws say about the suppression of the media?
No, thank you very much. The issue of freedom of the press as well as freedom of expression is something that has concerned most of us human rights advocates and human rights practitioners. Governments are supposed to guarantee freedom of the press because that's the bedrock of democracy. When you allow the press to report freely on issues, it means that development projects will be able to be implemented. It means that people are able to talk about issues that are affecting them. It means that the government will then be able to address the challenges that people are facing because of the reporting that is being done freely by the media. People need access to information to know what is going on in their country. Donors need to know what is happening so that they can, assist the particular government of the day. Investors need to know what is going on so that they are able to invest from an informed position in different countries. Other countries need to know what is going on as members of the international community for purposes of political engagements, diplomatic engagements, and so on and so forth. So therefore, countries are not supposed to be suppressing freedom of the media and freedom of expression, particularly the work that journalists do. They are there to be able to inform, they are there to be able to educate, they are there in order to provide platforms for people to express their views. Unfortunately, the state of freedom, especially in our, let me talk about the Southern Africa region where Mozambique is located, it is disturbing in most of our countries where, autocracy has affected the ability of journalists to report freely. It's not just in Mozambique. When you look at what has happened in countries like Zimbabwe, in Angola, and Lesotho, where journalists have faced challenges when it comes to freely reporting, especially on political issues. That's when you really see the government of the day, which is autocratic, coming in to arrest and detain some of the journalists.
Especially during election periods. Now, Lloyd, I'm happy you mentioned the state of freedom for journalism, and it's not particularly, the indices don't augur well for African countries. Now, what should journalists do when faced with such challenges as we've seen in the case of Arlindo Chisale? And what can they do to make their work environment safer?
So for me, I think that having well-established networks, not just inside your country of origin, but also outside your country of origin, working with NGOs that work around promotion of press freedom, like Committee to Protect Journalists, and any other NGOs or international organizations whose job it is to look at what is happening to journalists, and also perhaps being linked, like the way that Human Rights Watch has responded on this particular issue and highlight what has happened, which means that the international community is already focusing on what is happening in Mozambique. For me, that is really, really important. So having a very strong network outside your own country, and also even where within the journalist fraternity, it is absolutely critical to have that support system and to have that network, so that should something happen to you, people are your colleagues, friends, and other concerned persons are able to report and raise the issue for action to be taken for your protection. Because now, for instance, this abduction and detention of the journalist, is now out there before the eyes of the international community. And before we know it, I'm sure diplomatic missions and other, concerned countries and entities will be phoning Mozambique to say, look, what are you doing in your country?
There will
Please
be a lot
ensure
of
that
pressure
journalist is
on the government in Maputo. Thank you very much, Lloyd Kuveya, for joining us at News Central Now. Do appreciate your time and contribution.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.